The other one is, Brodie Grundy to the Port Adelaide Football Club. That one has made sense for a long time. I never liked him going to Melbourne. I know Kane Cornes said it was a good idea. I disagreed with Kane Cornes from the jump. I don't know why it seems like they did this because there was no one else. They didn't really have another option, but clearly it's coming back to bite them a bit. Again, I think they will trade Brodie Grundy. I don't know what will happen with Ben Brown, but it's clear rumours are saying they don't want Ben Brown either. If they can free some cap up like that, they could even target a Ben King out of nowhere, which is really, really interesting that they could try and do. He's going to be a free agent next year, so don't be surprised about that if they look at him. And realistic thing is, Brodie Grundy on Port Adelaide would actually be a really solid thing. The thing is with Port Adelaide, right, they're a top 4 team, but I don't think people realise how young their midfield is. Like, Zach Butters is like 22, 23. Connor Rosie's 22, 23. Jason Horne-France is literally, like, I think just turned 20. Like, those are the 3 dudes that usually start there. That is an incredibly young midfield. Then you got Ollie Wines, who's, like, I think 28 or so. Travis Boku might be retiring, so they could be looking for another midfielder there. But they desperately need a ruckman, I think. They've been struggling so long. Scott Lycett has not been the same guy that he was a couple years ago, unfortunately, because I really do like him. But, again, they can't keep playing Jeremy Finlayson in the ruck. It's just, look, it is somewhat working, but that's because of how good their midfield has just been. He's been able to make up for the Finlayson loss and not being a good player in the ruck, sorry. Again, Brodie Grundy in there, he's exactly what they need. I think Brodie Grundy, it would be a perfect situation for them. You'd have a tap ruckman who can move around the ground. Again, it was never going to work at Melbourne. I don't blame Collingwood for getting rid of him. I just think Brodie Grundy is a little bit overrated as a player, in my opinion. But in saying that, I think on Port Adelaide, he'd be a very, very good fit, and it would make a whole lot of sense to me. And yeah, I just rate this. And if you're Melbourne, you could probably get like a 2nd round pick back for Brodie Grundy still. I still think that would be worth it. Port Adelaide seem like they want to do that. They're also interested in a Sava Radigalia, which I'm not sure I mentioned this earlier, or on a previous video. But it makes sense for them, I think, to go into this free agency. Realistically, they do need a ruckman. They do probably need another key back. The only other thing they probably need is another midfielder to replace kind of Travis Boak. I wonder if there will be a player out there that they could maybe get in for cheap or so. Again, my obvious one would be Jack Graham for them. Again, I talked about this in the previous video. We know Jack Graham has been linked to Port Adelaide, and I think he'd be low-key perfect for them. He has played less than 20% of his time this year in the midfield, which is ridiculous. He needs to be back in there, and the times he has played midfield, he's been pretty bad. That's because he's been so out of whack with it. Jack Graham needs to be back in the midfield, and realistic thing is, this dude was once seen as the future captain of Richmond. A guy who can still average you 19 or 20 disposals a game, a goal every second game or so. I think if you're Port Adelaide, if you can come out of free agency trading away a 2nd round pick for maybe Graham, a future 2nd for like Grundy, and maybe a 3rd and a future 3rd or so for whatever Radigalia is going to be worth. If you can bring in those 3 players while keeping your 1st round pick, which I think they still own, that's ridiculous. Like, that is one of the best off seasons you'll see. They literally just got, like, they'd be probably the premiership favourites nearly next year. They would fill in every single position that they lack in, and their midfield will get an extra year older. It would be, yeah, ridiculous, right? It'd be so good for Port Adelaide. So they're interested in, again, Brodie Grundy. They're interested in Radigalia, which are 2 confirmed this year. They haven't been confirmed to being interested in Graham this year, but we know Graham took a tour with them last year and visited their stadium. So I think it's pretty obvious that they will 100% revisit Graham, and he hasn't re-signed yet with the Tigers. If I was Graham, I think I would leave for Port. He'd get more midfield time there. It'd be mutually beneficial for both parties if that happened, I think. And Richmond can bring in a 2nd round pick or so, maybe a future 4th as well to sweeten it, and it would make a whole lot of sense.